Amazing ACT of a black maid's child revealed. Billionaire frozen by heartwarming love kindness. Matilda stood in the kitchen, the sun streaming through the window, bathing the room in a soft glow. Her hands moved rhythmically, each scrape of the rag against the counter echoing her love for her son, Jamal. 12 years of sacrifice had taught her one truth: hope shines brightest in the darkest places. She often whispered to him, hard work and love can conquer all, baby. Never forget that. Jamal, always bright-eyed and bursting with dreams, listened intently, soaking up her words like sunshine. As the summer sun warmed their small southern town, whispers spread about the arrival of a new family, the billionaires from the city. Matilda felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She didn't need a reminder of the world's prejudices. Each day, she cleaned the opulent homes of the wealthy, wishing desperately to give her son a chance at the American dream. She stepped out into the sunlight, the heat wrapping around her like a shawl, her heart beating with determination. One fateful afternoon, as Matilda carried groceries, she spotted Jamal laughing with a girl at the park, a girl with hair the color of golden wheat and eyes that sparkled with joy. Her name was Emma. They were two children sharing dreams and laughter. Matilda paused, her chest tightening at the sight. For a brief moment, joy mixed with fear danced in her heart. What would happen when the world found out they were friends? The air buzzed with the tension of societal expectations and norms. At a barbecue designed to bring the community together, laughter ricocheted off the walls, but a subtle tension simmered beneath the surface. Wealthy patrons mingled with whispers, while Matilda and Jamal stood on the outskirts. They could feel the weight of judgments like fog rolling in. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the day wore on, dark clouds gathered, the air thick with anticipation. The storm that struck just after sunset was fierce, shaking the ground beneath their feet. Homes were damaged, and fear spread through the community like wildfire. Amidst disaster, Matilda's heart surged with purpose. She rallied her neighbors, her voice steady and strong, filled with love, as she coordinated the relief efforts. Jamal, inspired by his mother, found his courage and organized other kids to help. But just as hope began to bloom from their efforts, Jamal learned a powerful secret: he was the son of a war hero whose legacy held weight in their small town. The truth echoed in his mind. He felt the ground shift beneath him. Matilda stood at the town hall, facing William. The tension in the room crackled like electricity. You see my son for who he is, a dreamer who deserves more than what the world has offered him. It's time this town recognizes the truth about heritage and respect. Caught between a wall of silence and a sea of whispered disbelief, the community held its breath. The possibility of forgiveness lingered, but would they dare confront the walls built by time? Would they embrace a new tomorrow? In that charged moment, Matilda and Jamal stood united, staring into the unknown, their hearts echoing with a bold question that hung in the air: could love and kindness tear down the barriers that have long held them apart? The room pulsed with anticipation, the future lit by flickers of hope and uncertainty. The silence in the room stretched, thick and palpable. Matilda glanced at Jamal, courage evident in his eyes, though she could see the flicker of uncertainty hiding beneath the surface. They had faced struggles before, but never anything like this. Her heart pounded in her chest. She squeezed his hand, grounding him with a gentle squeeze, as she linked their strength. William, the town mayor and a familiar face in the community, wiped the sweat from his brow, unnerved by the escalating tension. Matilda, he began, voice wavering. This town is too caught up in its old ways. Matilda interrupted, her voice rising above the whispers. We all feel it. We all know it. And it's time for that to change. Her words rang with conviction, the honesty radiating from her like a beacon. the crowd turned restless, filled with conflicting emotions. Some faces showed support, while others bore the frown of disbelief. The air was thick with tension, and Matilda could almost hear the hearts beat in synchronicity with her own. It was now or never. Jamal stepped forward. "I want to be part of this town," he said, his voice steady, demonstrating the strength of a boy transformed by love. "I don't want to be judged for where I came from. I just want to dream. Just like everyone else." A murmur of surprise spread through the crowd. Some exchanged glances, caught off guard by Jamal's bravery. He was just a child, after all, but in that moment, he stood as a hero. Eyes glistened as he continued, "We can be better, together." Matilda's heart swelled with pride. Her boy was finding his voice. She glanced at Emma, who stood at the edge of the gathering, eyes wide with hope. Their friendship was a testament to what was possible, two souls seen, not as the labels of society, but as kids who shared laughter and dreams. But in the back of the crowd, discontent brewed. A sharp voice broke through the haze. "This isn't how things work, kid. You can't just change how people see you." It was a man Matilda recognized, one who often boasted about past glories, drowning in the dusty tales of yesteryear. Matilda's heart sank. Would they really cling to the old ways so desperately? But she refused to waver. "We're all tired of hiding," she declared, her voice stronger than ever. "We don't owe our happiness to anyone's outdated views." The crowd shifted, and for every dissenting voice, another took a step forward. One by one, murmurs of agreement grew. She could feel the walls cracking, the potential springing forth. Love had always been the driving force of their community. Could it be enough? As the voices rose around her, Matilda saw a flash of determination on Jamal's face. With every heartbeat, he was stepping further into the light, embracing the possibility of acceptance, of belonging. Then, in an unexpected move, Emma stepped up next to Jamal. "I'm proud to be his friend," she said, looking straight ahead. "And it's time we built something new together." A wave of uncertain applause rippled through the crowd, but it was a start. Matilda felt warmth swell in her chest. They were paving a way forward, one filled with hope, but a lingering fear nagged at the edge of her mind. What would it take for them to fully break free from the chains of the past? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a gentle glow, Matilda knew they stood on the precipice of transformation. Together, they could reclaim their narratives. Together, they could ignite change. But as a new voice echoed from across the park, filled with potent anger, Matilda felt her heart race once more. "You think you can just rewrite history? You don't know what it takes." She turned in alarm, eyes wide with trepidation. Who was this voice, and what would it mean for their fragile hope? The night hung thick with uncertainty, leaving Matilda to wonder what battle still lay ahead. The crowd's attention snapped to the unfurling drama like moths to a flame. Matilda's heartbeat thundered in her ears as she searched the faces in the shadows. The voice belonged to Malcolm, a long-time resident infamous for his bitter words. Years of toil in the town had molded him into a man who thought he understood history, yet chose to cling to the weight of its burdens. Matilda gripped Jamal's hand tighter, drawing strength from his steady presence. "What do you mean?" she challenged, raising her voice to carry over the soft murmurs gathering like storm clouds. Malcolm stepped forward, eyes narrowed with defiance. "You think just because you've got some fancy ideas, the rest of us will just forget? You want to change everything? You don't know the cost." The bitterness dripped with each syllable, bitterness filled with the ache of countless disappointments, but Matilda's heart ached for him, too. She saw Malcolm not just as an opponent, but as a man exhausted from fighting battles no one else knew. "I don't want to erase our history," she replied, her voice softening. "But I want us to learn from it, grow from it. We can carry our past with us while embracing a hopeful future." Jamal spoke next, his voice small but firm. "We all just want to belong. You're a part of this town, too, Malcolm. We don't have to drown in regret, right?" The crowd hushed, hanging on to his words, a fragile thread of common ground woven through the tension. A flicker of hesitation crossed Malcolm's face, only for a moment, but it was there. The momentum shifted, buoyed by the innocence in Jamal's voice, like a light cutting through the fog of despair. Matilda took a step forward, sensing the atmosphere crackle with potential. Instead of seeing each other as threats, she urged, what if we celebrated our differences? What if we chose hope instead? From the far corner of the crowd, an older woman named Edna, known for her unwavering support of the status quo, chimed in. That's all well and good, Matilda, but what do we do with the anger? The history? It's not just going away. Matilda took a deep breath, the tension in her shoulders easing a touch. That anger is real, Edna. I feel it too. But we can take that energy and direct it toward building something better. We can use it to drive change, to engage in conversations that bring us together instead of tearing us apart. Whispers of agreement rippled through the gathering. Some faces softened with the reflections of their childhood dreams, while others remained hardened. Matilda could see there were still battles to face, still fear to overcome, but then, just as the seeds of hope began to blossom, another voice broke through the ruckus. You think this is easy? You think we can change everything overnight? It was Ron, another old-timer, his brows furrowed with skepticism. Matilda felt a familiar weight settle in her stomach. No, Ron, it won't be easy. But nothing meaningful ever is. And if we stand united, that journey will be a little lighter. Jamal's voice rose above the others once more, together, we're stronger. His confidence brightened the room, filling the gaps left by doubt. With every heartbeat, they were drawing closer together, letting down the walls that had long divided them. Matilda felt a surge of emotion swell within her, the power of unity, of belonging. But as she locked eyes with Jamal, she realized that the real test was still ahead. What do you say? She asked, looking to the crowd. Will we try? A sea of uncertain faces responded, some nodding, others still on the fence. Yet, the path to healing grew clearer with each passing moment. But just as the flicker of hope caught fire, Malcolm stormed back in. This isn't over just because you said a few nice words. His voice was low but taut, a warning lingering in the air like thunder. As Matilda met his gaze, she felt a twinge of fear. She knew, deep down, that their journey was only beginning. How could they build a new future when the past loomed like a shadow? The crowd held its breath, waiting for her response, and Matilda wondered if their fragile unity was strong enough to withstand the approaching storm. Would they rise together, or would doubt sink them back into the darkness? The questions hung heavily in the night, begging for resolution. Matilda took a deep breath, the moment stretching like taffy, thick with anticipation. Her heart raced, thumping loudly, matching the tension in the air. Malcolm, she finally replied, her voice steady, it's not just words. It's what we choose to do next that matters. This is only the start of something new. Malcolm crossed his arms defensively, eyebrows arched as if daring her to prove it. The crowd around them swayed, caught between a push for change and the weight of long-held fears. Edna chimed in again, her voice shaky yet resolute. Change takes time, Matilda. You have to understand that. Then let us take the time together, Jamal interjected, stepping closer to the front. His presence felt magnetic, drawing eyes, and for a fraction of a second, Matilda saw glimmers of hope in the crowd. We can't ignore the past, but we can make a better future starting today. But how? Someone shouted from the back, breaking the fragile silence. What does that even look like? Matilda wanted to scream that she had the answers, that she held them like jewels in her hands. Instead, she gathered her thoughts, feeling the weight of every hopeful glance on her. It looks like community meetings, discussions, healing circles. It looks like offering support to one another. It looks like us sitting down at the same table. She gestured to a long wooden bench nearby, weathered by years of neglect. Let us come together, bring our stories, our struggles. Let us tackle them head-on instead of shying away. A murmur threaded through the crowd, a blend of skepticism and intrigue. Then, they turned their gaze toward Malcolm, whose expression betrayed nothing. He was an unyielding cliff in the gentle waves of change. "Fine," he answered finally, though his annoyance seeped through his words. "But you have to know, people like me are not going to trust you without proof. Without results. You can't just expect us to welcome this idea of togetherness based on hopes." Matilda's heart clenched, the truth stinging. "I know it won't be easy. I'm asking for a chance. A chance to prove that change is possible. That we can honor our past while building something beautiful. Just one step at a time." Some heads nodded in reluctant agreement. Malcolm appeared to soften just slightly, the fierce resolve still visible in his eyes but yielding bit by bit to curiosity. The air was thick with potential, each breath taken with hope. "Let South meet at the park next Saturday," Edna suggested quietly, her voice breaking the swirling uncertainty. "If we bring our stories, we can start a dialogue. Maybe some coffee, a place where people can share without fear." Yes. Jamal's enthusiasm cut through, lighting the space. "Let us do that. We can share the history that binds us, the dreams that inspire us." There was something refreshing about seeing a spark in Malcolm's eyes, a fizzle of interest amidst the storm of doubt. The crowd took a collective breath, surveying each other, exploring the possibility of actually coming together, but just as Matilda felt the swell of unity rising, a distant roar interrupted, a low rumble that sent shivers through the air. It was unmistakable, the sound of machines. One truck. Then another. The earth shifted beneath their feet as shadows loomed closer, casting doubt over their budding hope. "What the?" Malcolm's voice cut through the tension, his expression shifting from cautious to alarmed. "What is happening?" Edna whispered, panic beginning to spiral among the crowd. Matilda's heart raced again, but this time it danced to the rhythm of fear. She grasped Jamal's hand once more, feeling its warmth as an anchor. "Whatever it is, we can face it together," she vowed quietly, though unease twisted her stomach, but would their fragile unity hold when faced with an unforeseen threat? Ulterior motives could sweep in, crashing their newfound hope, dismantling their dream of togetherness before it had the chance to grow. As the crowd's tension peaked, Matilda knew they were teetering on the brink of something pivotal. Would they band together once more, or would the advances of the past loom larger than any love they hoped to build? The whispers of uncertainty grew louder, threatening to drown out the chance for healing. What awaited them in the shadows ahead? The rumble grew louder, a mechanical roar that battled against the hope hanging in the air. Matilda's body buzzed with tension, her pulse racing faster than the encroaching trucks. Jamal's grip on her hand tightened, a reassuring anchor amidst the swell of confusion. "What if they're here to stop us?" Someone whispered from the back, panic threading through the crowd. Murmurs erupted, spiraling into worrisome speculation. Faces turned toward Matilda, seeking solace in her expression. She felt weighty stones of responsibility piling on her shoulders, while Malcolm's earlier skepticism resurfaced like a storm cloud. "Stay calm," Matilda urged, raising her voice to cut through the mounting fear. "Let us not jump to conclusions. We've got to stand together." She felt the heat of her resolve. It wasn't just about words anymore, it was about action, but as the trucks inched closer, Matilda caught sight of the logos on their sides, a familiar shield, a company unlikely to support their movement. They were known for their exploitation, for advances that often ruptured communities instead of healing them. Her heart sank. "I think they're here to intimidate us," Edna gasped, her face pale. "They want us to back down." "We can't let them," Matilda said firmly, her voice rising with defiance. "This is our moment. We came here for change. We're not leaving." Malcolm finally stepped forward, his earlier bravado replaced by a grim determination. "You're right. We can't show fear," he said, shifting his stance. "They need to see our strength. We've got our own power." The subtle change in his tone sparked a flicker of solidarity, the truck stopped, engines idling. Heavy doors swung open, revealing men in uniforms, their expressions cold and unfriendly. They stepped down, casting long shadows over the assembled crowd. Voices echoed from the vehicles, deep, commanding, "You need to disperse. This area is under our jurisdiction." A ripple of hesitation passed through the crowd. Was it worth it? The risks loomed larger, threatening to crush the fragile bond they'd begun to weave. But then Matilda caught sight of faces around her, Edna's worried eyes, Jamal's fierce resolve, and Malcolm's defiance. They were all here, ready to stand firm. "Listen," she called out, stepping forward despite the churn of anxiety in her stomach. "We're here to create something new, something that has been neglected for too long. We want to build a community, not just for us today but for generations to come." The officers exchanged glances, clearly unprepared for her passionate stand. She continued, her voice rising in fervor. "You may hold authority, but we hold the heart of this community. We will not be silenced. Not today." A few people in the crowd began to rally, echoes of agreement rippling through them like a wave. "We will not be afraid." Someone shouted. "This is our home." The officers appeared torn, unsure of how to respond to the unity blossoming despite their threats. Did they truly believe they could intimidate people intent on change? The atmosphere shifted, the air fraught with potential, a cocktail of fear and newfound strength, but before they could react, a single voice cut through the thick tension. "What do you want from us?" It was a young girl, no older than 10, standing tall beside her mother. Her bravery ignited a spark that burned brightly within Matilda's heart. "Yeah." Another voice joined in, emboldened. "We just want a place to share our stories." With each shout, Matilda felt the energy in the crowd swell. Fear intertwined with courage, creating a force powerful enough to challenge any threat. "Let us show them who we are," Matilda called, her challenge laced with hope. "Let us stand firm together." As everyone around her rallied, hope surged like a wave washing over a rocky shore. But just then, a menacing shadow loomed from the trucks. The tension snapped as a familiar figure stepped out from behind the vehicles, a former ally turned adversary. The crowd hesitated, the unified strength faltering for just a moment. Matilda's heart pounded in her chest. Who would they have to face now? What did this mean for their budding unity? Would they be swallowed by the past, or would they find a way to rise again? Matilda's eyes narrowed as she squinted against the harsh light, trying to make sense of the figure emerging from the shadows. It was Donovan, a man once respected in their community, now seemingly twisted by ambition and corporate allegiance. A knot formed in her stomach as memories flooded back, meetings filled with promises, dreams of empowerment, all evaporating now under the weight of his cold gaze. "Matilda," he called, a mocking smile etched across his face. "I didn't expect to see you here. You and your little gathering." "Donovan," she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. "This isn't just any gathering. We're standing for something important." He chuckled, the sound grating against her ears. "And what is that? A fleeting chance to feel important? You're wasting your time. Nothing will change, not with us in charge." Beside her, Jamal squeezed her hand tighter, the warmth a tender reminder of their shared mission. "We'll change more than you think, Donovan. You underestimate us," he said, an edge of anger lacing his voice. Donovan's smile faltered for just a heartbeat, but he recovered quickly. "This is your last warning. Disperse now, or I will have to take action." The threat hung heavy in the air, sending a chill through the crowd. Matilda glanced around, searching desperately for signs of courage. She saw fear simmering, but she also saw a flicker in Malcolm's eyes, the same fire they all felt deep inside. "We won't be intimidated," she said, her voice gaining strength. "We're fighting for our future, our community. You can't silence us." "Silence?" Donovan echoed, mockery in his tone. "You really think you have that power? You're a mere ripple in a vast ocean." This is bigger than you, Matilda. In that moment, Matilda's heart hardened. Donovan had used the community to prop himself up and now he was turning against them. She thought of the sacrifices made by those who came before, the countless stories of strength and resilience that built the very foundation they stood on. They wouldn't let him tear it down, the crowd stirred, emboldened by Matilda's words. Stand with us. Someone called out. Yes. Another voice chimed in, stronger now. We won't back down. With each chant, the resolve deepened. The unfamiliar officers glanced at one another, unsure of how to handle this shift in energy. The facade of power began to crumble as Matilda raised her arms, encouraging the group's energy. Look around you, Donovan. She cried, her eyes wide with passion. This is our home. We are the heart of this community, and we will not be pushed aside. The crowd exploded with cheers, fists raised high in defiance. Donovan's demeanor shifted, uncertainty creeping into his powerful stance. Had he underestimated them one too many times? Suddenly, Matilda felt a surge of possibility, a moment where everything could tip in favor of hope. But just as she thought they might truly find strength, a voice boomed from the back, deep and foreboding. Enough. It was another figure dressed in an ominous uniform, far more menacing than the ones before. Matilda's breath caught in her throat. This was a decision-maker, someone who seemed to command respect and fear in equal measures. The crowd fell silent, each member holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Would Matilda's spark of courage ignite long-lasting change, or would they be crushed under the weight of authority once again? As she looked into the faces around her, she felt the pulse of uncertainty weave through them. What lay ahead would test them all, but amid that uncertainty, she clung to a new glimmer of hope. She would not let fear define them. Together she whispered to the crowd, we can face whatever comes next. Her determination was a beacon. As the figures approached, the tension hung thick. What were they prepared to do now? Would they fold, or would they stand firm against the tide, united and unyielding? The officer's voice echoed, cutting through the solidarity built within the crowd. Step back. His tone left no room for doubt. Matilda felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her chest. This was it, this was the line they had been warned would come. The crowd shifted, a collective instinct to retreat rising like a tide. But Matilda held her ground, heart pounding, the energy of her people swirling like a tempest around her. Jamal whispered, we should prepare to leave, but she locked eyes with him, determination blazing in her glance. They had come too far to back down now. No, she breathed, urging him to trust her instinct. We can't let fear win. Not today. Donovan stepped back, a flicker of triumph crossing his face as the officer loomed closer. The air turned electric, and Matilda could feel every breath shared among her friends, uncertain yet steadfast. There was comfort in their unity, a warmth against the cold dominance descending upon them. Let us not make this a bigger issue than it needs to be, Donovan pushed, his words dripping with condescension. Just turn around and go home, or I can assure you this will end badly. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Was this the moment? Would they fold under the threat, or would Matilda's spark kindling in their hearts ignite an inferno of resistance? She could feel it stirring a call for action buried deep within them. You want us to go quietly, she called out, her voice rising. But we will not vanish into the shadows just because you command it. The officer's eyes narrowed as he surveyed the group. You're causing a disturbance. I'll give you 10 seconds to disperse or face arrests. With those words, Matilda lifted her voice, sharper than the fear creeping through her, a blazing rallying cry. We are not a disturbance. We are a community seeking justice, a voice that demands to be heard. Each word electrified the air, feeding from the courage of those surrounding her. At first, it was hesitant, but soon a single voice joined in, and then another. Stand firm. Someone shouted. We're here for a reason. The metamorphosis was happening. The fear was being beaten back by the intoxicating call for justice. Jamal's hand in hers became a lifeline as he joined in. Don't let them intimidate you. We have rights. We are worthy of being heard. The terrain around them shifted. An undeniable energy surged, filling their hearts. Donovan's earlier confidence began to wane, and for the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. He hadn't prepared for this kind of resilience. Matilda could feel the tides turning. Everything exploded as a chant began to ripple through the crowd, the rhythm building like thunderclaps in their chests. We are one. We are strong. We won't back down. It was magic voices rising as one, magnetic and powerful. The officer, taken aback, hesitated for a moment as the voice of unity swelled, but amid the fervor, in the midst of standing strong, a sudden siren pierced through the charged atmosphere. It was loud, urgent, slicing through hope with a jagged edge of authority. Matilda's heart dropped as flashing lights flooded their gathering, a stark reminder of the immense struggle they faced. The officers' reinforcements arrived, limiting their options. Fear threatened to claw its way back into the hearts of the assembled group. Matilda felt her breath catch again, this time with the weight of uncertainty. Would they arrest them all? Would they get swept away into the tide of oppression once more? She felt the eyes of everyone around her, expecting her to guide them. As she inhaled deeply, she understood that this might just be the beginning of something powerful or the start of their darkest hour, but in that moment of doubt, she knew one thing: they couldn't let fear steal their voice again. Together she whispered once more. We stand or fall. The stakes had never felt higher. Would they discover the strength to rise, or would the sirens signal the end of their fight? The air vibrated with tension, the piercing sirens cutting through the tremendous energy the crowd had built. Matilda's heart hammered against her chest as she stood before the glowing lights, their harsh glare illuminating the determination on her face. She could sense the fear creeping back in, whispering doubts in the minds of her friends, telling them to run, to hide, to dissolve into the night. But it was not just her fear, it was the fear of generations, the weight of history. Standing there, her feet firmly planted, she felt the rush of anger and resolve swell within her. She turned to Jamal and the others, their expressions haunted yet fierce. Look around. This is us. Matilda cried out over the cacophony. This is our moment. We can't let them silence us. At her words, the vibrant hum of their chant rekindled, a flickering flame reigniting. We are one. We are strong. We won't back down. They rallied, voices intermingling and rising like a chorus against the storm. Unity surrounded them like a shield, pushing back against the cold, oppressive force of authority. The officer, flanked by reinforcements, looked uncertain, almost confused. This was not what he had anticipated. The crowd pressed forward, pulsing with defiance, refusing to retreat into the shadows. Matilda felt exhilaration surge through her as she watched people step forward, fists raised and hearts open. Then, in an unexpected twist, a familiar face broke through the thick line of officers. It was Ms. Blackwell, the elderly woman who had lived in the neighborhood for over 50 years. She had taken care of many, anchoring the community with her warmth. Now, with her cane in one hand and a fierce glint in her eye, she approached Matilda. Child, Ms. Blackwell said, her voice steady as she locked gazes with the officer. We've had enough of fear and silence. We deserve dignity, not threats. We belong here. Matilda couldn't help but smile through the rising tension. The sight of Ms. Blackwell standing firm, her small frame radiating strength, was a symbol of their shared struggle. The crowd echoed her sentiment, a wave of we belong rippling through them, and for a moment, the officers wavered. Every one of us here carries the legacy of those who fought before us, Matilda exclaimed, her voice firm. We are not just names, we are stories, we are lives. We have the right to be heard. The energy shifted again. Faces, once filled with doubts and concern, began to glow with purpose. They were not alone. A group of parents stepped up with their children, banding together for the future they envisioned, one free from fear. A mother held her child innocent and unaware of the weight of the world, and yet so directly impacted by it. Matilda's heart swelled with pride and hope. "This isn't just about today," she shouted. "This is for our future. This is for justice. This is for love." And in that electrifying moment, the chant resumed with renewed vigor. The officers' formation faltered, confusion spread across their faces. Matilda caught Jamal's gaze again, the fire in his eyes rekindled as she said, "We're not backing down." But just as they seemed to have the upper hand, the officer, recovering from his daze, barked an order. "Arrest them all. You had your chance." Panic flooded the crowd as they braced for what was next. Matilda could feel a tightening in her chest. This was the moment that would determine everything. Would they stand, or would they be swept away by the tide of oppression? As the officers moved in, Matilda's voice rang out over the swell of fear. "Together, we fight. Together, we rise." In that instant, she wondered if this was where their journey would lead toward destruction or rebirth. The scream of sirens and the fervent chant collided, creating a tempest of emotion. It was all or nothing. Would the undeniable force of their unity turn the tide, or would they slip into the night under the weight of authority's hand? A single moment poised to change everything hung in the air, and Matilda felt herself teetering on the brink of history. What would happen next? Matilda's heart raced as the moment stretched into infinity, the air thick with anticipation and fear. She could see the officers advancing, shields glimmering in the harsh light. The crowd began to shift uncomfortably, some people glancing back, longing to escape the chaos. But Matilda steadied herself, drawing upon the strength of everyone standing alongside her. "Stay together," she yelled, her voice slicing through the noise like a knife. "Don't let fear divide us." Jamal moved closer, his jaw set in determination. "We won't go down without a fight," he called, and the conviction in his tone ignited a renewed spark in the crowd. People clenched fists and set their jaws, refusing to retreat into the shadows. They were raw, alive, and together. As officers began to push forward, Matilda noticed Ms. Blackwell still standing strong, surrounded by several young folks eager to protect her. It struck her that this was more than a moment of protest, it was a living tapestry of their community, bound together by shared purpose. The moment the first officer reached for someone at the front, Matilda felt fury boil within her. "You want us to be quiet? You want us to run?" Her voice rose above the din. "I refuse. You can't take our voices." The crowd picked up on her energy, chanting louder, a powerful wave pushing against the oncoming officers. "We are one. We are strong." Their voices melded together, gaining volume and ferocity, transforming into a roar that filled the air. But amidst the power of their unity lay uncertainty. Matilda stole a glance at Jamal, who met her gaze, and she could see the flicker of fear behind his resolve. They all carried burdens heavier than the ones they faced that night. Hope and dread clashed in her heart as she focused on their goal. Then came the crack of a baton striking a shield. The loud echo sent a shockwave through the crowd. "This is your final warning," the officer shouted, his voice deep and menacing. Matilda felt the trembling cascading through the people around her, but she took a step forward, defiance surging anew. "No. We will not be silenced. You will not break us." Each word was delivered with fierce clarity, aimed directly at the men in uniform. The officer hesitated when faced with her stare, a flicker of uncertainty creeping into his expression. In that moment, Matilda saw an opening, an opportunity to turn the tide. "Imagine a world where we can walk without fear," she called out, her voice steady now, infused with passion. "Where our children can play freely and our voices count. We are fighting for that future." A shift in the atmosphere occurred, and murmurs of agreement rolled through the crowd like a soft breeze. Some began to cheer. Matilda glanced around, needing to harness every ounce of that energy to make it palpable, to keep it alive. Then, just when it felt like their strength might overwhelm the fear, an unexpected flash of light illuminated the scene. The distant sound of camera shutters began snapping, drawing attention from bystanders and media. The crowd looked up, momentarily distracted. What had become a fight for their lives was suddenly also a spectacle. "Look!" someone shouted, pointing to a nearby news van. "They're broadcasting." The realization hit Matilda hard. This was their chance to become more than just whispers in the dark. They could stand tall and proud, their faces known, their stories shared. Hope ignited deep within her again, brighter this time, pushing away the shadows. "Let them see us!" Matilda yelled. "Let them hear our stories. We won't be silenced. We won't be ignored." As the chant moved once more through the crowd, Matilda faced the officers once again, her heart steady. They were more than just bodies positioned against an oppressive force, they were a movement, a revolution, ready to take their destiny back. But just as the moment seemed to bloom with possibility, a loud crash echoed from the back, a barricade falling over, an unexpected shatter. The crowd gasped. What would happen next? Would their surprising strength hold against this twist, or would they face another unexpected barrier that could alter the course of their fight? The crash sent a ripple of fear through the crowd, and Matilda's heart pounded like a drum. She turned, searching frantically for the source, but as she did, something miraculous happened. The murmurs of doubt transformed into murmurs of courage. The officers stumbled back, their authority faltering just like the makeshift barricade that had given way. "Stay strong!" Matilda shouted, her voice rising above the noise. "This is our moment. We won't let one fall shake us." Jamal stood beside her, head held high, the determination in his young gaze igniting a fire in the hearts of those around them. Then it happened. A wave of unity surged, louder than ever. People started to chant, echoing the energy of Matilda's spirit. "We are strong. We are together. We won't back down." It was as if every soul present had felt the tremor of hope and pain, mixing to create a symphony of resilience. They were grounded in one powerful truth: they belonged together. Matilda shifted her gaze back to the officers, who looked visibly shaken. The flashing cameras captured their doubt. The news had spread like wildfire, their gathering was no longer a small protest, it was a movement. With every face in the crowd shining bright, the strength of their collective spirit created an electric atmosphere. With her heart racing, Matilda stepped forward. "Look at all of us, standing shoulder to shoulder," she exclaimed. "Every face here has a story worth telling, a dream worth fighting for." She glanced at Jamal, pride swelling in her chest. He was a leader, even at his young age. And she was just as proud of everyone's willingness to rise together. In that moment, Ms. Blackwell stepped forward, her cane firmly planted on the ground, a symbol of strength and resolve. "If we fear no longer," she declared, her voice cracking with emotion, "then the walls that once trapped us will come crumbling down." The crowd felt that rallying cry, igniting fervor that reverberated in their hearts. The officers exchanged uneasy glances, realizing that this was no longer just a handful of voices. People were coming together in ways they had long forgotten. They were no longer outnumbered, they were empowered. And as the cheers rose higher, each officer stepped back, unsure of how to proceed against that wave of history and humanity. Matilda felt the tide turn. A path had opened to tomorrow, a future of understanding, of respect. "We've seen too much injustice," she said, glancing around, meeting the eyes of her community. "We refuse to let it define us any longer." A loud cheer erupted, surging forward. People were flooding into the space, and she saw Edmund at the back, his eyes wide with realization. He had been silent for too long, and now he stepped forward, arms wide open. "I want to be part of this too," he called out, and Matilda felt her heart connect to the shared hope of many. With each voice joining in, her own confidence solidified. It wasn't just about them, it was about the generations of struggle and resilience that had come before. The darkness they had faced was being washed away by the light of solidarity. And then, as if summoned by their unified spirit, the police slowly retreated, recognizing that their force could not withstand the unyielding force of a united community committed to change. Matilda took a deep breath and turned to Jamal, who wore a radiant smile. Both their hearts swelled with the sweet nectar of pride and hope. They not only stood their ground but also transformed the battle, the beginning of new promises. Let us carry this forward. Matilda shouted. Starting now, we build something beautiful together. Our stories, our dreams, they matter. Cheers erupted around her. The officers looked bewildered but backed away, and Matilda knew they had seen something powerful, something they couldn't shake. The night sparkled with promise as the people of their town began to dream not just of survival, but of a community born from kindness, love, and dignity. As the crowd began to disperse, Matilda felt Jamal squeeze her hand. "We did it, Mama!" he exclaimed, eyes glistening with hope. "Yes, baby," she whispered back, wiping a joyous tear from her cheek. "And this is just the beginning." They would forever continue to stand united, carrying the weight of history but lighting the way for a brighter tomorrow. The air buzzed with laughter and conversation as they made their way home, a soft reminder of how strength and love could indeed conquer all. As they disappeared beneath a canopy of stars, Matilda turned back for one last look. The park felt different now, filled with promise and light. It was not just a gathering of people, it was a family, learning to embrace their differences and celebrate their shared victories. To celebrate this pivotal moment in our community, you need to subscribe now. Don't miss the chance to be a part of our journey, our stories. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm with our powerful message. Comment below about your reactions and feelings about this ending. Let us keep the dialogue going. And remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and spread the hope that love can bring. Don't wait not even one more second. The world needs this message from our hearts to theirs.